In 1956, Jerry Voorhees, president of the Cooperative League of the USA, now NCBA, recruited Ali to accept a position with NCBA's program in India. An entire nation is grateful for this. Ali's involvement in India went beyond the call of duty, reaching into all cooperative sectors and making a tremendous difference in the lives of millions. For example, a team of U.S. cooperators recommended the creation of a fertilizer facility to help solve some of India's food problems. The idea was met with skepticism, but Ali kept it alive for 5 years through persistence and education. Thus, the Indian Farmers Fertilizer Cooperative was formed, now one of the largest producers of fertilizer in Asia. Seeing the need for electricity, Ali recruited NRECA to help start 5 rural electric co-ops in India. Thanks to this effort, 38 rural electric co-ops are now electrifying nearly 9,000 villages. Ali led a program of supervised credit in rural development in 15 Indian villages. This program was so successful that it became the model for the main national program to increase agricultural production in India during the early 60s. Ali also secured soybean oil for the National Dairy Development Board of India for its Oilseeds Growers Cooperative Project. To date, this project has organized more than 5,000 co-ops with nearly 1 million members. In addition, Ali helped the Dairy Board get low-cost, high-quality milk to populated areas by creating dairy cooperatives. And he helped the National Cooperative Union of India develop new training methods and materials. As a result, Ali is still viewed today in India as a mentor and a teacher. For all of his work, the Prime Minister of India recognized Ali with the National Cooperative Union of India's Certificate of Honor. After more than 12 years, Ali returned to the United States to become NCBA's Director of Outreach Programs. In this role, he significantly increased NCBA's technical assistance to co-ops in the United States and overseas. On 2 occasions, Ali temporarily assumed the difficult task of acting president of NCBA while continuing to oversee the extensive NCBA development program. He also served as executive vice president of the predecessor to CDF. Ali was honored by 4 U.S. presidents who appointed him to 6 successive terms on the board of the Overseas Private Investment Corporation. Craig Nayland, former president of OPIC, said of Ali,
I think those of you involved in the cooperative movement ought to know that this guy has been so helpful in getting many projects going involving cooperatives in the struggling third world nations, ranging from bus cooperatives in Ecuador to cotton gins down in Paraguay, to feed milling operations in Jamaica, seed growing operations in Turkey, all of these involving co-ops. And yet, he tells me, and I know he tells his associates, he hasn't done enough, and he feels he'd like to do more, and I think that says more about this man than anything else.
Attracted to the credit union movement by its motto, not for profit, not for charity, but for service, Rita began volunteering at Mount Sinai in 1958, just 6 years after it was chartered, where she served as an unpaid volunteer for more than 3 decades. She shepherded the institution from a tiny office in a church basement to a freestanding credit union occupying a former bank branch office on Cleveland's East Side, a financially disadvantaged community marginalized by mainstream institutions. Under Rita's direction, the credit union provided not only much-needed financial service for church members, but also the guidance and financial education to help members build assets. Today, it serves some 6,000 members and counts $12 million in assets. From 1982 to 1992, Rita served as chair of the Inner City Association of Minority Credit Unions, comprised of 28 church credit unions in Cleveland. During those years, Mount Sinai and Antioch Credit Union signed an agreement with the City of Cleveland Minority Business Development Department to establish a $200,000 revolving loan fund to provide small business loans to minority contractors. This cooperative effort was a first in Cleveland and helped many small business owners obtain contracts with the city. With the abandonment of Cleveland's inner city by banks and savings and loans in 1989, Rita decided that Mount Sinai's future lay in providing needed financial services to the entire community. So she worked with a community cooperative organization comprised of businesses and religious organizations to obtain a charter for Cuyahoga County, which includes inner-city Cleveland. In the process, Mount Sinai changed its name to Faith Community United Credit Union in 1990 and opened its membership to anyone living, working, or worshiping in Cuyahoga County. A year later, Faith became self-supporting and doubled its membership. Under Rita's leadership, the credit union applied for and received the U.S. Treasury Department's certification as a Community Development Financial Institution, CDFI, in 1997. In 1999, Faith became an approved Small Business Administration lender. Rita's direction transformed the credit union industry. In the late 1980s and early 1990s, before society recognized the dangers of predatory lending, Faith's innovative Grace, Greater Grace, and Mercy loan programs provided community members with a trustworthy and affordable alternative to payday lending, while simultaneously offering a stable financial relationship with a reputable community-based financial institution. Under Rita's direction, the credit union also established a Wheels program that helped people pay for car repairs so they could get back to work. Because Rita was at the forefront of the movement against predatory lending, she testified at numerous congressional hearings against the practice.
Catherine said she became interested in preschool cooperatives for two main reasons. One, because she had children, and two, because college didn't prepare you for being a parent. She felt co-op preschools would help overcome the isolation of young parents and would help them to feel competent. Therefore, in 1927, she led a group of 20 young mothers in forming the Children's Community Center in Berkeley, California, and became its first director. At the beginning, Children's Community had 25 children, one being her son Ross. It operated on 1 acre of land in an old barn. Always innovative, the group acquired an abandoned streetcar and fixed it up for the children to play in. The land was given to the Children's Community Center by 2 school teachers, but they needed approval of the neighborhood for zoning purposes.
I remember one mother who, she was a grandmother by that time, who lived right next door. Everybody else had signed it, and she said, "No, I won't sign it. I'm not going to let other mothers get out of raising their children. I spent the best years of my life doing it, and I'm not going to let anybody else out of it." So we thought she was a wonderful example of just why we need cooperative nursery schools, so that mothers wouldn't feel resentful of the time.
Word of the successful preschool co-op spread fast. Catherine always emphasized that its success was due to the education and involvement of the parents.
Children do have parents, and unless we're going to take them away from parents, we need to train the parents to be good parents. Every place you go, they say, "Oh, it's all the parents' fault." It seems as though if you could drown the parents, you could do something for the children.
She was asked to head an emerging parent education program in Seattle, and by the time she left 5 years later, 90 such programs were in place. In the 1940s, a number of preschool councils were formed, and Catherine was asked to go and speak to many of them. While doing this, Catherine saw unique and innovative ideas which she thought should be shared with others involved in parent cooperative preschools. She thought a national organization might be the answer, and proposed the idea to others involved in the movement. There was little support, but she did not let go of her plans. Catherine became the supervisor of parent education in 1951 in the Baltimore Public Schools, where she taught parents early childhood classes. She even conducted graduations where parents received degrees.
So we wanted parents to feel more proud of themselves, particularly young mothers who feel, if you ask them, what do you do? They say, oh, I'm just a housekeeper, I'm just a housewife, as though that was nothing at all. Well, I used to always tell them, well, now, when they ask you, you can tell them, I am a coordinator of family relations.
Catherine was in great demand throughout the country and helped develop parent education programs and co-op preschools in Baltimore, Denver, Seattle, and California.
At Children's Community Center today, I feel the influence of Catherine Whiteside Taylor is still evident. The school was started by her over 64 years ago with the hope that parents would participate in the education of their children, and that still is true now.
Catherine not only believed in children, but she believed in peace and a safe world for children.
Al and I both grew up in family businesses. My mother was a pharmacist, and I saw all her friends. They all lost their businesses, one by one. And not because they weren't smart, not because they didn't care, because they didn't have the scale and the availability to do what the big guys did. There's great pride, connectivity to the community, the family, and we didn't want to see that lost.
We developed a really very, very close personal relationship. And then we started to sort of speculate with what ifs. What if we did more things together? And lo and behold, we struck up with the idea of forming a cooperative of getting retailers to come together.
Thus, in 1984, they created the Carpet Co-op of America to help independent carpet retailers operate in an increasingly competitive marketplace. What made this enterprise so revolutionary is that it wasn't just a buying organization, but rather a holistic approach into the members' entire business, including operating systems, training programs, marketing, merchandising, and buying. This had never been done before. Needless to say, it was incredibly successful. Within 1 year, Carpet One Floor and Home was established with 13 members. Under Howard and Allen's leadership, it quickly became the top floor-covering retail group in the nation.
By leveraging our power, knowledge, resources, and experience of a relatively small initial group, all of us were not only able to survive, but we began to thrive.
But it wasn't always easy. Early on, major carpet manufacturers refused to sell to the co-op, and both Howard and Allen had to risk their stores and invest personal resources to bankroll the venture. They persevered, however, and ultimately convinced the carpet mills that selling to Carpet One would mean larger sales and future expansion for the mills. Over the next 10 years, the co-op experienced exponential growth, reaching beyond North America to include businesses in New Zealand and Australia. By this time, Howard and Allen were well aware that they had created a flexible, winning business model that could work for other retail and service industries. With this in mind, they reached beyond the flooring industry to include companies in lighting, mortgage banking, bicycling, and the newest endeavor, reaching out and supporting the nonprofit sector. In 2001, Carpet Co-op of America changed its name to CCA Global Partners to reflect its broadened scope. Today, CCA Global is a multi-billion-dollar business with 15 companies in 4 countries that demonstrates how independent businesses can achieve scale through their cooperatives and compete with the large chains. All of this without sacrificing the valued service of a locally owned business.
The independent and the individual entrepreneur still maintains his strength, his individuality, his connection to the community. And what we really try to do is bring the tools that are needed to enhance their greatness.
In addition, both men recognized the importance of being responsible corporate citizens. One example is their literacy efforts, which included CCA's donations of books, library makeovers, and school literacy programs. The Magic Carpet Time Tour, a traveling program promoting the joy of reading, has reached over 225,000 students across North America. And CCA was the first company to take a corporate initiative on USA Weekend Magazine's National Make a Difference Day by completing library and media center makeovers worth over $250,000 at local elementary schools. Steve's first real exposure to co-ops was when he moved to Charlottesville, Virginia, where Peg earned her doctorate in school psychology at UVA, and Steve worked as a civil rights and community organizer in Halifax County, a poor, rural area near the North Carolina border. Here, Steve saw all too clearly the pervasiveness of poverty, powerlessness, and fear within the African American community. But he also saw strength and hope. He worked along with local people to improve their lives by organizing, and by the age of 23, he was promoted to field director of the Virginia Community Development Organization. Steve was motivated by the farmer cooperatives with which he worked, and was inspired by low-income people coming together to form and govern their own economic institutions. The stage was set. In 1978, he moved back to the Northeast to continue working on social change. It was here that he joined forces with a group from Boston to launch the Industrial Cooperative Association, now known as the ICA Group. This was one of the first nonprofit technical assistance organizations in the United States aimed at developing worker cooperatives. As president, Steve was directly responsible for hiring the staff, developing the program, and acting as the public spokesperson and lead fundraiser. He consistently advocated and searched for opportunities to do startups in low-income communities, rejecting the idea that poor people weren't the right population in which to promote worker ownership. He had seen from his days in Virginia what cooperation could achieve. One of the ICA's biggest successes was helping in the creation of cooperative home care associates in the Bronx, New York. This home care cooperative began with 12 home care aides in 1985 and today is the largest worker cooperative in the country, employing more than 2,200 workers. Steve and his staff helped the founders of CHCA, Rick Serpin and Peggy Powell, write the business plan, negotiate startup funding, and set the cooperative's strategic direction. Steve then joined the CHCA board, which he served on for more than 20 years. In 1990, the Ford Foundation and Charles Stewart Mott Foundation approached CHCA with the idea of replicating its success. Steve was soon asked to spearhead this project, launching what is now a 240 worker cooperative called Home Care Associates of Philadelphia. Steve served as HCA's founding board chair for many years. Both CHCA and HCA stand today as national models where workers gain influence, respect, and fair compensation as business owners. Steve was greatly influenced by his brother Ken, who before he died of AIDS was a national leader within the gay and lesbian advocacy community and a lifelong supporter of civil rights. Steve learned from Ken the importance of giving everyone a voice and pressing for public policy change. In 1992, Steve co-founded the Paraprofessional Healthcare Institute as the nonprofit affiliate of CHCA. This national policy, advocacy, and technical assistance organization now works for the benefit of all direct care workers nationwide. As PHI's founding president, Steve has been a leading policy voice working to strengthen our nation's direct care workforce. And from there, he helped found several other elder care and workforce advocacy organizations. Never short on energy, she earned her MBA in finance at the University of Connecticut while working full-time and renovating an old Victorian house. Rebecca married in 1978, and her sons Anson and Owen were born in the mid-1980s. During this time, her marriage ended, and she left her bank job in search of a more flexible schedule. The Cooperative Fund of New England was the answer. In early 1986, while pregnant with her son Owen, Rebecca became the fund's second executive director. Working from home in what was a novel situation at the time, she has expanded the fund to over 100 times its existing size. The portfolio grew from 5 to 80 loans, and assets from $130,000 to more than $16 million during her tenure. Rebecca's financial expertise and her visionary leadership are the keys to this success. She trained outreach workers throughout the region to professionally respond to borrowers and encouraged a lending culture focused on creativity and flexibility. She wasn't afraid to develop loan products that would specifically meet borrower needs, as long as due diligence was met. This allowed the fund to work with a variety of cooperatives at all levels of development, ranging from startups to well-established larger co-ops. She also worked to bridge cooperative and community development finance worlds, all in an effort to strengthen cooperatives and serve people. The results have been incredible. Since its inception, the Cooperative Fund has made more than 600 loans, resulting in 7,800 jobs, 4,400 units of housing, and thousands of membership and business ownership opportunities. Rural and urban communities alike throughout New England are the better for it. Perhaps most impressive is that not one investor dollar has been lost in 37 years of operations. Not too shabby, considering the fund has raised over $30 million from social investors. This is in no small part a result of Rebecca's leadership. In 1994, Rebecca married Paul Reinman, and the two relocated to Wilmington, North Carolina. The Cooperative Fund's progressive virtual office structure allowed her to continue in her leadership role. In addition, this structure has allowed for very low organizational overhead, increasing the fund's efficiency and attracting more investor dollars. In 1980, Chuck was hired as president of Temporaries Federal Credit Union. It was here that he first experienced the power of cooperation, when a single mom on the brink of homelessness came in for a small loan for an apartment. Chuck granted the loan, and each week after that, he was reminded of its importance when she came into the bank to pay her bill and personally thank him. Co-ops helping people. It made a profound impression on Chuck. In 1983, Chuck became the National Cooperative Bank's corporate vice president and chief financial officer. At the time, NCB was only 5 years old and was struggling to transform into a cooperative owned by its members. Chuck made a significant difference. He restructured NCB's equity investments by creating multiple classes of stock and acquiring a failed Ohio thrift that has since become NCB FSB. He also engaged with various secondary market players to bring innovative financing to NCB borrowers. In 1991, Chuck was named NCB's president and CEO. Since then, he has devoted himself to building a relevant, sophisticated, and thriving financial institution that focuses on cooperative principles. Over the years, Chuck's work in the housing sector has been particularly impressive. He helped launch NCB's Road to 51 program and other creative ways to rescue cooperatives using innovative loans. He developed the Share Credit Corporation to help limited equity housing co-ops, and was in the forefront of developing co-op housing for seniors in rural and urban communities in many states. In recognition, he was awarded the Jerry Voorhees Memorial Award from the National Association of Housing Cooperatives in 2007. Chuck is a visionary leader who is always inclusive. He worked with Alaskan Native corporations to help Aboriginal tribes add value to their raw resources. He helped bring purchasing cooperatives into the NCBA membership when some were reluctant to do so. And he strengthened the food co-op sector through his support of the Food Co-op 500 initiative. He is also a leader who is unafraid of a challenge. Unlike virtually all other banks, Chuck and NCB stood shoulder to shoulder with credit unions to rally for H.R. 1151 and preserve the rights of credit unions. He has remained steadfast in this support, even when proposed measures might have benefited NCB. Chuck deeply believes that co-ops are the better business model and the best way for people to exercise control over their homes, their businesses, and the services they need. Over the years, he has created a culture within NCB that supports those ideals.
We like to care. We like to care about people. We like to care about our customers. It's important that we have that connection with whomever we do business with.
In fact, NCB's mission banking ensures that a portion of its loan portfolio is dedicated to low-income cooperatives and communities. Chuck also believes that cooperatives are America's best-kept secret. He isn't someone who loves the spotlight, yet he can be counted on to be the voice of cooperatives at every turn. The Co-op 100, Day in the Life of Cooperative America, and his leadership in securing .coop are all examples of ways in which he's worked to publicize co-ops. He has given his time to organizations such as the Cooperative Development Foundation and the National Cooperative Business Association, all in an effort to promote and strengthen the cooperative way of doing business.